Welcome to another edition of Bossic Podcast. And as I've mentioned a few weeks ago, I'm focusing currently in talking about AI technology and all that involves. I've written a couple of articles about it in the past, but I wanted to reach out to some world-class experts wherever they are. And I'm lucky today to be able to speak to Professor Alexiei Dingle from the University of Malta. Hello, Alexiei. Welcome to the Bossic Podcast.
Hi, Mark. How are you? First of all, I hope you're fine, and thank you for inviting me over to your podcast.
No, it's a pleasure, and thank you for taking the time. I was looking at your profile, which is very impressive. You've won a number of awards, and we'll come to that. But you started out as an application developer, so it's not just at the sort of the high level academics. You've really got a wide experience here. Tell us a bit about how you got to where you are now.
Okay, so if we have to start from the very beginning, I was always interested in computing. So, I remember my first computer was when I was 10 years old, and at the time with the ZX Spectrum, and
Wow.
you could do as much on a computer at the time. So you
Yes.
have to dirty your hands with some coding as well, and that is how the passion started for computing. Eventually, I moved forward even to the Archimedes back then, and then my first 386, 486. The Pentium. So I've had pretty much most of the most common computers at the time. Then eventually, when I came to sort of choose in secondary school, I always had this passion between either the arts or computing. I chose computing more because, it gave me, let's say, a living. It allowed me to earn a
Yes.
living at the time.
Yes.
But I have to admit that part of myself is still very much artistic, and I'm very much creative. But in computing, surprisingly, I found that element of creativity as well. No, because when you have to solve a problem, the amount of creativity which you need is quite staggering, especially when we talk about AI. So AI interested me immediately because I was always very much curious about science fiction and the future. And being a curious person by nature, I always wanted to create things which I've seen in movies and see whether I can actually create something similar. So I think that was my choice of subjects at university. When I finished my first degree, I was offered a position in Sheffield in the UK, and I immediately started my PhD in AI. At the time, it was focused on natural language processing. So it's the ability of AI to process text or language, natural languages like English, Italian, French, whatever. And I think I was lucky enough because something which maybe today is not so popular is that at the time we were discussing a lot the creation of what was known as the semantic web. So the semantic web was a concept created by people like Tim Berners-Lee, who was the creator of the internet, of the World Wide Web. And he wanted to create this web, had this vision of an internet which was also accessible not just by humans, but also by machines. Because the problem at the time was that, a lot of information on the internet was for human consumption, but a machine would find it hard to process that information. And in fact, my thesis, my doctoral thesis was about actually converting the current web into this new kind of web in an automated way, of course, using AI methodologies. Then, of course, when I finished my project back then, I returned back to Malta, and I started working as a manager in a large corporation in Malta. I was responsible for the research, the IT part, and also statistical part. And over there, I stayed to touch with the realities, of using automation and digitization in industry as well. Following that, then I moved over to university. And the nice thing about university is that, it gives me the freedom to explore different projects and work with different companies over this process. Sometimes throughout these years, I used to consider myself, I consider myself as an AI evangelist. I give a lot of talks to children at schools, to industry. But sometimes I used to feel like this prophet in the desert, no? Sort of saying that AI is coming, but we're still not there yet.
Yes.
But I think in the past few years, especially ChatGPT and all these massive deep learning models, I think now we're seeing the actual impact of AI. We're still at the beginning of this, let's call it AI revolution, but I'm sure that things will change a lot in the coming years as well.
Interesting that you mentioned about the arts, because I'd seen that you'd won a creativity award, which is something that I'm also very interested in. In fact, I've done podcasts in the past talking to people about creativity, and I agree with you. I think it's very, very important. How do you think that it's benefited you in combining your studies with AI and working with organizations?
I think it was extremely important because most of the time you're faced with problems which have no solution. So you need to find ways of solving that problem. It might not be that I don't have all the answers in the world. I can't promise solutions that are 100% effective, but for most people, and I think this is something which a lot of people, especially in academia, do not realize. For a lot of people, solving around 50, 60, 70% of the problem is already a massive achievement. And
Yeah.
I think that is what sort of the message which I try to push, that listen, I'm not promising magic, and I'm not solving all of your problems, but I'm pretty sure that with AI and with different technologies, we can solve a big chunk of what you're trying to achieve. And I think slowly companies start to understand that, because one of the problems which we've been facing is that the truth is people do not understand AI.
Mhm.
So one of the things I was involved with in 2019 was the drafting of the Malta AI national policy. And during that drafting, I was responsible for education and labor. And because of that work, I had to meet with different unions, different organizations, employers, governments. And it was extremely clear that all of them heard about the World AI, but most of them had no idea what it is or how to use it for their benefit.
Yeah.
So we needed that extra step. And I think that is one of the things we've been doing in the past few years. So we're educating companies about potential technologies, which, as I said, might not solve all of their problems, but will definitely help them advance in what they're trying to achieve.
I was, and I'd like to continue that line of thought actually, because I think it's very relevant. But just to touch upon, because I was looking at your profile, I was really impressed with the number of awards that you've won, and I think awards are useful. But a couple of them that stood out. First, in the European Space Agency. Tell me a bit about that one.
Okay, so that was an application, I think now more than a decade ago. It was a competition with one of my students, and we had to create a system to help people navigate through a city, but in an intelligent way. So it's not just about going from one point to another, but take into consideration things like temporal constraints. So how much time do you have in the city? Whether your party is made up of different people. So if I go in a city alone, I might want to go around museums, but if I'm with my kids, then of course, I have to make time for fun activities for the kids.
Right.
Things like, for example, accessibility. How many times somebody who has accessibility issues reaches a location only to find a flight of stairs? So the AI was taking into consideration these different aspects, and it was in collaboration with the European Space Agency, because at the time they were, I believe, launching their Galileo system. This sort of the European GPS system, and of course it was one of the first applications that actually made use of such a system to help people navigate, but in an intelligent way. Because of course at the time there was still GPS, but it's about going from point A to point B. But taking into consideration the individual aspects of the person or the party was what made the entire difference. And I think that is, Mark, a precursor to what's happening today, because I believe that one of the elements which will become extremely important in our near future is what I like to call as hyper personalization, whereby every aspect is hyper personalized for the individual needs. But of course, we have to keep in mind that individuals do not live in a cocoon; they're not on their own. So if I'm at home, I have my wife, my children. So everybody's need to be somehow choreographed together in order to find the best solution for the group of people. And I think, in these kind of aspects, personalization, AI can make a huge difference. And that is why I say that, the future will be very different to what we're used today. Because when you start seeing these services in action, you start to appreciate sort of the added value which these systems will give to the lives of people in the very near future, I dare say.
Yes, I think so. I find exactly the same, that I have conversations with people outside the industry talking about AI, but I think they need practical examples of where AI is used in order for them to gain that deeper understanding. Because superficially, we tend to hear about AI replacing people's jobs. And I think that that's seen as a negative and people tend to switch off a little bit. But when you start to see the true benefits that you can get AI that really relate to people's lives today, I think that can make a big difference, being able to tell that story.
Yeah, and what's the problem with AI? AI doesn't have a label which says, this is AI and this isn't AI.
No,
So
no.
people do not realize. In fact, going back to my work in the Malta.ai national strategy, when we asked companies and we told them, listen, do you know about AI? And most of them said, yes, of course, we know about AI. Then we told them, but do you actually use AI? Most of them said no. It was only about 30-40% who used AI. And then we
Yes.
said, listen, this is AI. This is AI. And we gave the number of case studies. And that number went up to 80%. So people do not realize that they're actually using AI. And I dare to say more than that, people do not realize that they are dependent on AI. In fact, when I give, I give a lot of talks in my work and I tell them, so how many of you use AI? And you see a hand here and there going up. And then I tell them, do you send emails? Do you play games? Do you have a robotic vacuum cleaner? Do you have a modern oven? And so on and so forth, everybody's using AI and we're all dependent on AI. And that is the big difference. So hence why I say, listen, I think the first step is to educate people because people do not realize what is AI. And my biggest concern, Mark, is that AI is advancing so much that we're not catching up to all these advancements. I mean, I study AI; it's part of my job as well. But
Sure.
even I have to learn things practically each and every day. So you can imagine somebody who reads the occasional article on the newspaper about AI. We need to inform people about what's happening in AI. And once we do that, then we move to the next step. Because as you correctly pointed out, a lot of people get scared of something which they don't know. So that's why the first step is to teach them about AI. And I'm pretty sure that, as you said as well, there will be jobs that will finish because of AI. People will become redundant. So now is the time, and this is my appeal even to governments. In a few weeks' time, I have a meeting, a presentation to the Malta Council of Economic Social Development, which is the board which gets all the entities in Malta. And this will be my message to them. Listen, guys, we have to act from now. We can't wait until, the wave actually hits us. I don't know when or how it will hit us, but it's coming. And that is what we need to take care. And unless we start from now, we cannot guarantee those people who will actually be affected in a negative way to make the transition. Because if you look at the statistics of the World Economic Forum, you find that AI will displace around 80 million jobs worldwide. But on the other hand, it will also create about 95 million new jobs.
Yes.
But of course, it doesn't mean that those 80 million will automatically go into those 95 million. We need upskilling, reskilling, training. We need loads of new stuff. Even, for example, something which I apologize for it, but it really frustrates me when it comes to education. Are we actually preparing the workers of tomorrow? Because, if you look at our educational system, and I'm not just talking about the one in my country, but practically all over the world, we're using technologies and approaches which are quite old. So, I have my children that are constantly on TikTok, on social media, whatever, and they have all these flashy things, exciting and colors and music, whatever. And then they go to class and we tell them, listen, stay 40 minutes listening to the teacher. I mean, it's not the world which we are creating or which we need in the future. And unless we are conscious about this and that we actually need to make some radical changes in all aspects of society, but starting from the education, because we're creating the foundations of tomorrow, then I'm very concerned that we will not manage to do the necessary changes which we need in a few years' time.
I totally agree. And I think that education creates understanding. And I'm thinking in the business world, talking to senior business executives, there is a potential advantage that they can bring into their organizations. But first, they need to understand it.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to overcome that fear, because there are efficiencies that they can bring in. But I think they're going to need assistance once they have a degree of understanding in how to best apply that technology. And I think that that's really important.
And Mark, I think we should also focus as well on other issues, because as we said, so from the employee's point of view, AI will bring quite a substantial amount of disruption. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody will lose his job. It's not how it will work. But I'm pretty sure that the majority of those people will change their work practices.
Yes.
No, because I don't know if before I used to summarize or create points about a particular document. Now I have my ChatGPT and it does it for me. So work has to change now, even though I won't lose my job. But there's the other aspect, which I don't believe that employers are realizing. In the coming years, now this is quite ironic, employers will keep on finding it much more difficult to find talent. So, good people, trained people, enough IT people, because the truth is that universities and other education institutions are not producing enough human talent when it comes to ICT. So we will be facing shortages now in the future. And that will be a big problem for businesses, because, when you have a shortage, what are the effects? So your current workers will become overworked. They will be stressed. No, you can't produce as much as you like. So even your profits will go down. So there's this duality of aspect. That's one, we have people that are going to lose their job, but we need to retrain them quickly. On the other hand, we have companies that need people, but we don't have enough people for those companies. And hence why I think we need at this stage this sort of social pact that, listen, we need to change things rapidly. I think the time of discussing and pontificating about
Yes.
what will happen has to stop now, and we need some action.
Absolutely. The education will lead to the understanding, and with understanding, you can start to see the opportunity, but you can also prepare in advance. And I think part of what you're saying is being able to prepare for that education of the children, but also to be able to prepare, because I think moving forward, there are going to be, well, let me backtrack a little bit. I think one of the other issues is that we see with changes, particularly in the business world, but for society as a whole, now changes happen much, much faster. And what we're going to see with AI is that accelerating pace of change. And that causes the human problems, because it's a lot of information. It's a lot that they've got to understand in a reducing period of time. Those people that can have that education and understand, they can adapt the changing environment. And then you can start to prepare ahead. But without it, you will get big winners and big losers. There's a potential for a very, very big divide. There are people that I speak to. I mean, it's strange, even within the software technology area, there's traditional software, and then there's the more intelligent technology. And I've picked up from a couple of the articles that I've had that even the companies that are developing the more intelligent technology, they're not necessarily leveraging it fully within their own organization, which is really important so that you get experience of it. And there are other, their clients who are at the moment, they're really fearful of AI, and they're shutting their eyes to it and hoping it will go away. And the longer they do that, because it can replace, it can improve customer services for organizations, which gives you competitive advantage. And if you're getting a few companies that are getting that competitive advantage, they can accelerate away. and it's very difficult to catch up because, you know, retaining customers, increasing profitability, and gaining new customers because of that better engagement, which is something that AI can help with parts of, not totally, but parts of it. You add those up, the bottom line benefit is massive.
Yeah.
And if those companies then can reinvest into more technology, and we'll get a big disparity. So it's something that you cannot just ignore it today.
In fact, Mark, let me give you this quote. Okay, so today, it's not, you shouldn't be worried about AI taking over your job, but you should be worried about someone or a company that knows how to use AI better than you, because
Yes.
they're taking your job.
Yes.
And I'm seeing it all over. So you know, the first movers who are actually adopting AI are getting so much advantage over the others that it's incredible. And as you correctly said, you know, the race is speeding up. So we have to be careful. On the other hand, we have to be careful as well about those people who are on the other end of the digital divide. And one of the effects of the COVID pandemic was precisely that. Something which I saw was that the divide kept on increasing.
Yes.
So you got, you know, people who overnight had to go online, but you know, when the microphone stopped working, they had no idea how to fix it.
Yes.
Because there's as much knowledge that these people had about computers, there were also some new sorts of digital poverty, let's call it. I know of a case, and I was helping a campaign here in Malta to give PCs to families as well, whereby you had a family that actually had a computer at home, but since they have 3 children, they had the eldest one working on the computer, the middle one working on the tablet, the youngest one working on the phone, on the smartphone, and you know, the parents somehow had to do their job as well, all from home. So you know, you start seeing these new digital limitations now. And when you have the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, where we started seeing the shortage in the supplies of electronics, so everything is interconnected. And when you have these big disruptions, things start changing pretty quickly. Let me give you this case study, which I got from an interview I conducted a few weeks ago. It was with a management consultant in Canada. And one of the things which he told me, which to be honest with you, I never realized it, but he made me conscious about it. He told me, listen, told me, you know, I don't employ juniors anymore. And I told him, why? He told me, because the AI tools can do anything a junior can do for me. So why do I need to employ a junior to do that job? So you see, the dynamics are changing a lot now. And these are all signals which will eventually hit us. And this is my message that I want, you know, people to understand, that it is coming. And now is the time to actually start doing something about it. We can't keep on going, as you correctly said, that, you know, it's AI sort of, let's turn the other side, because it will hit you just the same, even if you're taking the other side. And this is something which I really would like companies to understand, because these technologies are coming and we need to take the changes before it is too late.
I know that you work with a lot of software vendors, helping them and advise them. And I think that we've been through the digitization, we've been through the availability of cloud and SaaS, which has encouraged the use of applications, single applications to fit all. Do you think that with AI, we will see more organizations wanting to create their own unique solution to further enhance that competitive advantage?
Yes, definitely. And in fact, if you notice what big companies are saying, for example, Microsoft, as probably most people know, they're actually thinking of having some sort of deal with ChatGPT at the moment, with OpenAI. And so they think of integrating it with Office, which, you know, that would be a big way forward. But an interesting thing which they said is that they will try to give everyone their own ChatGPT. So what does that mean? So if I'm in, I don't know, logistics, you know, I will have my own ChatGPT in logistics. So as you see, I mean, if I were to link your question with what I said before, the future is all about hyper personalization. I want my own assistant, I
Yes.
want my agent, I want my own postal worker, whatever, bank manager, and that is something which AI will provide. So imagine sticking something like ChatGPT. I'm saying something because there are other models really. It's not the only one. But to provide the personalized services now, and that the power of that is something unbelievable because anything I want is practically at a click of a button now. I don't even need to interact with a person because it's almost as good as a person. And the nice thing about it is that it is giving me a natural interface, something which was lacking for quite a lot. A few years ago, I had a meeting with one of the largest telecoms over here. And one of the things they told me is that, listen, we started a self-service system, so for people to actually pay their bills and stuff. And it was a total failure. But why? The reason is that, not everybody's comfortable with a computer. But when we're moving now from talking to a computer to talking to a system which offers me natural language, now it's talking my language, what I've been talking for the past 40 years.
Yes.
So the conversation is very different, and that is the power. So companies can now reach a wider audience of people in a natural way, something which was impossible up till a few years ago. Because even when you say, everybody has a chatbot or everybody has a website, it's not the same. Most people are not comfortable with it. I mean, we have to be honest. But now the level is so good that you can offer these services, and that is what will make a difference. So talking to a computer will become as natural as if we're talking over here today.
I think in the future, looking back, it will seem quite alien that we've had to communicate with computers and with software through a keyboard.
Yeah,
It will seem very strange, whereas at the moment that's accepted. I think
let me give you an analogy.
yes.
So they have been contacted by a number of schools or panicking because of ChatGPT, because it's starting to do the homework now for the kids and the project. And then the analogy I like to get is the following. Listen, a few years back, and I remember because I was part of that, we moved from what were known as the logbooks to a calculator at school.
Calculator, yes.
And it's exactly the same thing. Now we have to do this paradigm shift. And,
Yes.
I understand this change, and changes is never easy, but that is the shift now which we need to do.
Yeah, and I think part of that comes from giving confidence to people from the understanding to be able to make that shift, because there is always risk with change. And if they're going into a future that they don't understand, the tendency will be to do nothing. I'll reduce my risk by doing nothing. But I think the reality is doing nothing will be very risky, because there will be some that will take advantage of it. And, as you rightly said, it comes back to education. Education is so important for that. I mean, from my perspective, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, I see AI having a number of really big benefits, and I like to focus on those benefits rather than always talking about putting people out of work. And I think it's augmenting human intelligence, so being able to reduce some of the repetition, which the human brain is not good at. Hours of doing repetitious work is not something that the brain is very good at. Reducing cost and efficiency within organizations, I think it's very, very good at. Improving customer service, so your clients get a better service, they get more of what they want, being able to do that at low cost. But also the fourth one is, I think, by reducing some of that repetition and also enabling people to work, it could mean that perhaps people don't have to work quite as long hours, and reduce stress and increase motivation, because everybody goes to work and they want to do a good job. But I've seen in many large organizations where people are frustrated because somebody in another part of the organization hasn't done something, or they're being held up, and they feel that it reflects back on them. The ability to be able to work in series and not so much in parallel will also help that. And if you're reducing the work hours, which is something that's very current at the moment, people working exceedingly long hours. Well, if AI can take away even 30% of your work, you can focus on those critical things that the human mind is very, very good at. and at the same time work less hours, because you get diminishing returns on working longer and longer hours. So there's another potential cumulative effect that you can get from that with AI. Very, very positive aspects of it.
I don't want to sound cliche, but I think the idea is to work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
And I think that's where we should go. And those people that will actually use AI tools will manage to do that much before the others. So hence why we should train people now to actually learn to use AI for their own benefit, as you correctly said. And in fact, there's been quite a lot of talk, both worldwide, about the universal basic income, for example, or also the 4-day week rather than 5-day week. And these are not just utopic ideas that we might reach. I think that, as you correctly mentioned, with AI we can do that, because imagine one of the things which you could have is you have your own AI persona, no? So it will be an AI copy of yourself, which can do the most, let's say, tiring work or repetitive work. And then, of course, you can manage that persona. And that is today pretty much a reality. One of the things, for example, which happened with COVID was this shift for remote working. So technically, I can control a computer remotely. And mind you, it's not just knowledge workers that can do that, but also physical workers. So I remember a case study, a truck company in the United Kingdom, whereby the trucks were being piloted or moved from one place to the other remotely by remote operators. So I'm at home on my desk, I have a sort of steering wheel similar to the gaming ones, but I'm actually moving a real truck from one place to the other. So these things are a reality today. They're no longer stuff of the movies. I've seen another interesting case study in Japan. In Japan, they have a pop-up cafe, okay? And the waiters are all robots, okay? But they're not autonomous robots. What happens is that a few kilometers away, there's a person with ALS, so he's practically 100% paralyzed or almost 100% paralyzed, and using just his eyes, he's managing to move that robot remotely and do the work, and of course, even communicate with people. Plus, he's earning a living. So we're giving back the dignity to these people that were located or restricted to their household. So as you can see, it's opening new opportunities. And it's also about using everyone's potential. Because up till a few years ago, this person couldn't even contribute to society. But now he's not only contributing, he's earning his own wage. He can do much, much more thanks to the invention of technology. And I think I agree with what you said, that is pretty much the future. Technology will be there to mediate between the humans and, of course, the work. And I think that's a very powerful concept, because it will open up new opportunities for a lot of people. And in that sense, people can keep on doing what they know how to do best. So be people, the human touch, communicate, everything. And robots can do the boring task. I remember a few years back, I went to visit a local company that it's actually a multinational company, and they produce banknotes. So it's a high security facility. It's a tough job. And you have people working in quality control that are spending 8 hours a day looking at these banknotes through lenses. So I can imagine their poor eyes after a whole day of work, these people.
Yes.
It's not a job for humans, let's be honest. I mean, have a machine do it, that job, and then move the human to do something else, something more productive, something more enriching to the person as well, because, these jobs do not enrich anything. So I see a lot of potential over there, but I think we need to sort of engineer it properly. No, because the easiest thing would be, okay, remove the humans, get the machines. And mind you, it already exists this. I know that in the Far East, there are some companies, some factories called lights out manufacturing.
Yes.
And they're called lights out manufacturing because they don't use lights. It's just robotics over there. Yeah? And to be honest with you, it's not the kind of future I want to live in. I want to live in a future where humans are valorized for their potential, they're helped to develop, they're happy in their lives, and of course the machines can do the other boring repetitive work.
it needs to be a managed evolution of change, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Going from traditional to the more intelligent technology. And it's interesting that you mentioned about the robotics. I saw just yesterday, I was at Excel at an exhibition, and they were showing small robotic devices working in a warehouse where they were transporting goods, where normally it would have been in forklift trucks, where there's a big safety issue there. Lots of people have been harmed through these, whereas these small little devices were able to carry heavy loads to an individual who was then working, but without that level of danger. I mean, the most you'd get is probably a bruised shin, whereas forklift trucks moving around where there are people is always a danger. And I think also in areas of compliance and regulation, many years ago, I've been talking to organizations that are using the ability to be able to monitor telephone conversations, for instance, within banks, and making sure that people were compliant. Now, in the past, and it still happens today, they had to do spot checks with people to make sure that there wasn't really big issues, and it can be disastrous. I mean, we've seen in history brought down banks by people just not behaving the right way. Using AI and using technology, you're able to do that monitoring to warn a user if something's going wrong and quickly stop that. And those sort of things can be very, very positive. Costs, save businesses millions.
I have a project at the moment exactly on that.
Really?
So yes, we have a big call center.
Yes.
It's about 500 people. So every person on average, if I'm not mistaken, answers around 50 calls per day. So we're talking about 20 to 30,000 calls a month, something like that. The only spot checks they can do is about 7 calls per person in a month.
Yes.
Which is practically nothing considering so we're building an AI system for them to actually process all the calls and alert quality control when there are issues. And like that will be actually analyzing all the calls of these people. So Mark, as you can see, and this leads me to another important aspect, because a lot of organizations do not realize that it's true, there's an initial investment most of the time because this costs money to produce. But when you see the benefits you get from it, because imagine you're moving, if we take just this case study, which is just one, you're moving from 7 calls to thousands of calls being analyzed at once. So your level of quality will shoot up.
Yes.
Even if the AI does nothing, let's imagine that the AI doesn't really work. Okay, for a second. The fact that the operators are actually thinking that, all of their calls are being monitored is already important for them to go up.
Absolutely.
So the return on investment is massive in these projects, and that is what I've seen. That it's true. There's an investment involved, but when you consider the return on investment, it's very quick and very massive compared to the original investment.
What do you think is the biggest consideration for a business owner today of, say, a medium size or maybe even a large organization in being able to make that transition? What do you think that they need to be focusing upon to be able to take that evolutionary step?
Okay, so I start from the premise that a lot of people do not really understand AI. I accept that, and I don't expect everybody to be an AI expert. Otherwise, they ought to study as much as I do for that. so no. But what I tell these people is a number of facts. So first of all, I believe that the first step is education. So listen, guys, train all the people, but not just carpet training. Select the people who you think will benefit the organization. In what sense? If there is a cleaner, okay, or a receptionist that always comes with good ideas, that's the right person for you. Okay, so this is not about training the managers or the level C guys or the clerks or whatever. It's about choosing the right people that they will bring change in your organization. And most of the time, it's the people you least expect. Okay, but we all know who they are because they come up with ideas of change. I remember in a particular place, I know a person who's just the beadle over there. But he treats the organization as his family. So that's the right person because he wants good for the organization and he believes in these positive changes. So that's the first thing. get them to understand what is AI, and most important, get them to dream about AI. What can I do with AI? I can do this, I can do that. Okay, it doesn't mean we'll manage to do everything, but that's the first step. Then the second step is collect all of these ideas into a sort of an AI strategy, which I like to call, but prioritize it based upon, listen, which are the pain points of the company? So where do we need to see actual changes? Okay, and which are the most beneficial? Because
Yes.
we have to, one, go slowly. So I don't believe that AI is something which you just sprinkle some dust on it and it becomes AI. It doesn't work like that. So we need to go slowly with the process. We have to reassure people that we're not doing anything to throw people out of a job. All right. And people need to understand the benefits of it. And once you identify that project, start with a small project. So make a small project, make sure it's a quick win so that even the investment gets immediate return. And then once it's completed, go to slightly bigger projects and slightly bigger projects and keep on doing like that. And I think that is a very organic way of growing a business and getting the benefits of AI. Unfortunately, I meet a lot of people who just think that let's do some AI here, and it doesn't work like that. I mean, it has to be planned. People has to gain benefits from it, and it has to be done properly. And that is why I think a lot of projects unfortunately fail, because there isn't this long-term plan of AI. AI is not something where in a couple of weeks you get magic. It doesn't work like that.
There's a number of articles that I've seen recently that are talking about and saying in the future all businesses will become software businesses, and I sort of understand that the point that they're making. One of the things that I've heard complained about from both perspectives actually are software vendors trying to sell solutions into large organizations, wanting to talk to the most senior people. Those senior people perhaps becoming overloaded with the technical aspects of the solution and passing it to their IT department. And then the IT department sometimes having slightly different agendas regarding bringing in new solutions. And there's a little bit of a friction that goes on there in sort of all three camps. You've got the senior people that are looking to drive efficiency in costs and reduce cost and improve the service and perhaps creativity of new products. You've got an IT department that want to be able to keep control of that IT. And then you've got the vendor that can see possible solutions, but they're frustrated because they're not necessarily being able to talk to the decision maker. I think that's another area that needs to be addressed, because that also happens within government as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that education has to happen within the government.
Mm-hmm.
Our representatives within government need to understand this technology as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. In fact, I like to propose that it has to come, I believe, from bottom up most of the time, because a lot of times it's the people that are actually at the bottom that know what are the problems.
Yes.
And as you correctly said, Mark, different people have different agendas. So, this manager might have an agenda, the other manager might have another agenda. Maybe there are conflicts between them as well. I've seen it happen multiple times.
Yes, I have.
So I think it's about a little bit democratizing, the running of the organization, and it can be both public and also private organization. Last month, for example, I was doing some work for the Office of the Prime Minister, and one of the things which we did was to actually get all the CIOs, so the Chief Information Officers of the different ministries, and we created a session whereby we started from AI training, so that they start to understand what is AI and look at the possibilities, but then about dreaming of possible AI solutions. And all of them had different solutions. They were varied solutions, but they were things which they meet on a daily basis. So it's the complaint which is constantly coming in, and they don't have a solution for it. And once you start to realize these real pain points, then it's much easier to change things, because you're actually operating where it actually hurts. And
Yes.
and once you do that, you have the different stakeholders, you have the top brass as well, you have the minister in this case because it was public organization, and everybody starts getting aligned. One of the things which I forgot to mention is that I have an MBA as well in technology management. And my thesis was actually about aligning operations to strategy. And I see quite a lot of misalignment in our organization. So, we have the board of directors on top, they say something, and somehow it has to trickle downstairs. That doesn't always happen. And the problems of downstairs never reach the top over there. So we need this element of communication. And I think, democratizing how our organizations work, and finding the right solution for the advancement of the entity as a whole now, not just for a particular department or for a particular section, but now we have the tools, and the tools are AI tools. Now we can do it now, but we need to get people on board, and I think that is the secret. After all, we're talking about people management here. No, it's nothing more than that. And if you get people to subscribe to this idea, let's say, things will move forward. But that's the first step, because otherwise they find every problem to your solutions. I like to call them problem miners, where they problems where there isn't one. So that's what you have to do.
What are your dreams for the future in regarding AI? How would you like to see the industry use AI?
If I have to be honest with you, sometimes I'm a little bit frustrated because, I live in this world of AI. I know the potential and what it can do. But then I see that, unfortunately, a lot of organizations are not adapting as quickly as they should be to AI. So my dream is that to get more people on board as quickly as possible. Because, of course, as I said, one of the things I'm certain about is that there will be a lot of disruption. So I want, as a human being, of course, I want to limit as much the disruption. And if I can help people not to lose their job, I mean, that would be great. Two, also the efficiency of the organization, because I understand that, a business or whatever, it's there to earn money, So how can we help them to actually move forward? And it's not just about business, but also about other services, like, for example, government, where for example, the customer care is very important over there. So I think AI can give so much benefits, yet we are not utilizing it enough. And that is really what I would like. I would love. If I have to be honest with you, Mark, one of the reasons why I'm in AI is also because I feel that, AI can make a big difference in people's life. I have projects in education, Industry 4.0, in health, and I can actually touch, the benefits of AI. If I just tell you about the educational project, one of the greatest results we're getting from it is that by using our AI, personalized AI system, we managed to reach the low achievers. And in just 1 month, they managed to improve by 18%. I mean, it was something which we weren't expecting, really. I mean, a massive improvement for these kids. But it's about changing the lives of people. And, if in my work I don't manage to change the lives of people, then I think I'm a failure, to be honest. That is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see more of the AI changing the lives of people for the better, of course.
Yes, I think that's great. And I think education is a topic that I've touched upon previously, and people learn in many different ways. And I think AI gives the opportunity to be able to leverage the best means of education for individuals.
Yeah.
And there will be people that are currently in an education system at the moment that perhaps are seen as slow learners, but actually they've got a fantastic potential. They're very much more practical. They learn in non-traditional ways, and that can be catered with, and that can be also identified. And I think that's very, very important. And I think the final thing is giving people exposure to AI in also very small businesses. And I was talking to a client just a few weeks ago, and I said, if you think of the smallest business, maybe that could be a corner hairdressers where you've got 1 or 2 people that are cutting hair. If you had the ability using AI to be able to take calls, book their appointment, and then even be proactive and say, well, this person has a haircut every 4 weeks, to contact them to say, would you like to be booked in because we've got appointments available? It enables the people to be spending more time doing what they really want rather than cutting hair and having to pick up the phone. Once you see that and it starts to affect everyone's life, hopefully that will help with that education and reduce some of the fear and the cynicism.
Yeah.
And that would be a good way to go.
In fact, a quote which I really like, I think it was by Albert Einstein, which says that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will believe that it's a failure for all her life. And
Yes.
I think that's what we do with children sometimes. We have our system, and if you don't pass from that system, then you're a failure. Which
Yes.
shouldn't be that. People learn differently, they have different interests as well. So that's why I believe that, once again, hyper personalization is the future for everything, really, for all aspects.
So you're dreaming of hyper personalization with
Yeah.
AI in the future. Brilliant.
Indeed.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time today. It's been a fascinating conversation, as I expected it. I mean, you have a great name, as I mentioned to you right at the start, and people are going to definitely remember you. But if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
They can either find me on social media. So I'm on all social media. I'm a very social person. So
Yes.
Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, they'll find me over there, or on Medium. I write articles constantly. So I'm very reachable. Or by email.
And to look out for the different spelling on your first name, which you told me before the podcast started was a mistake by your father. So it's Alexiei.
Indeed. Otherwise, they
Excellent.
won't reach me.
No, you can thank your father for that, because now, yeah, people are going to find you. It's brilliant. Thank you very much for your time today. Fascinating conversation. Perhaps we'll come back at some stage. I think we could spend the time just talking about education alone and AI. I think that would be an interesting topic for a podcast in the future. So thank you very much for that. So hopefully you've enjoyed that conversation today. As I always say, please give me feedback if there are particular topics that you would like me to cover. If there are things that you don't like about the podcast, also let me know. I will listen. But for now, be dreaming of hyper-personalization with AI. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.